if you're betting on a race, would you bet on the runner who started 100 meters behind everyone else? In what has swiftly become one of the most competitive 10,000 meter events in the world, the 10 features the fastest distance runners in the United States, as well as an outstanding selection of international talent. That's why it was even more impressive when Telahun Bekele, despite literally starting the race 100 meters behind everyone else, found himself vying for the win with 1 lap to go. And that is only one of the exciting occurrences in this week's running news.
The latest from the world of running brought to you by AtoZrunning. I'm Andy.
And I'm Zach. And at one of the first outdoor track meets of the season, 3 NCAA men ran under the previous 1,500 meter collegiate record. Is this the start of another record-breaking season, or are they peaking too early? That is the question. But before we get to that, a quick update about us.
Oh.
I actually have a surprise update that Andy does not know about. I'm breaking it.
Oh, my word.
Right now on
Why'd
air.
you do this to me?
So,
okay.
First, you recall Zach has had a pretty rough winter. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know that on account of an undisclosed event that I'm not going to spend any more time talking about, I ended up with some fractures in my foot, not running related, and took a bit to heal from that, but thankfully because of the type of fracture, they were not as disruptive as it could have been. And so I'm getting back into running just recently and feeling pretty good doing so, and I'm glad for that. And thank you to the many of you who have said many nice things and encouraging things in the last several weeks. You have been far too gracious and generous. So that brings us to the update, which is particularly timely. We are recording this. I don't know exactly when you're going to be listening to it, but we're recording it on April 1st, which is April Fool's Day. And I don't miss the irony here that this update is not an April Fool's joke. But anyway.
Glad to clarify there.
April 1st is also significant because back in December, a previous coach of mine, you've heard us talk about Q here. Q is great. He told me, and I quote, we were sitting having dinner one evening, and he said, you need to run a race, a marathon, where everybody's running 2:12, and you just have to try to keep up. And I said, Q, I think that's a terrible idea. And he said, no. He's like, when was the last time you ran a marathon where you had to run faster just in order to be in the race? And I was like, yeah, okay, it has been a little while now. And he's like, I want to find out what happens. I want you to do that. And then he turned to me and he said, and I found a race for you. And this is exactly how Q works. And so as it turns out, if you recall back in 2020, in the year 2020, when everything was shutting down, the marathon project was put on by a small group who wanted to have a race opportunity for elite marathoners to be able to qualify for the Olympics, recalling that the Olympics were also disrupted, and so they were going to be a year late. And so they put on this race that was essentially like a time trial staged event. They had a multiple lap marathon course that was set up like a championship race type of dynamic. They had pace groups for multiple different pace ranges to try to satisfy the best possible opportunity for each qualification window. And then they had a number of other conveniences for everyone in the race. And they thought this was just an awesome experience. Well, Ben Rosario, who previously was the head coach of the Northern Arizona Elite group.
NAZ Elite.
Thank you. NAZ Elite. He retired from coaching NAZ Elite, and part of the reason for that was because he wanted to make the marathon project a recurring event, and he wanted that to be a main focus of his. And so they announced in December that they were going to be running the marathon project again in 2025 at the end of the year, and that they were going to have highly limited field sizes, 2 races this time instead of 1. And so one they were calling the pro race, and it was going to be based on the first 100 people, the fastest 100 people to sign up, but actually not even sign up, to apply, were going to be admitted into the race. And then they were going to be given all the conveniences of you've got your hydration tables, your bottles, you've got pace groups. You can select a pace range that you want, and they'll have a pace group for you, all this kind of stuff. And if you weren't one of the first 100 by fastest time qualifying, then they had another 500 or so that were available in what they were calling, I can't remember actually the name of the other race, but it was like the next day they were going to do it again. But not everyone would have all the same kinds of setups and conveniences. For instance, it wouldn't be paced as fast and things like that. So they made an announcement about a week ago that they actually were going to expand the field sizes, and now the pro race was actually going to be made available to the top 200 applicants, which is pretty neat. And then that they would announce whether you were accepted on April 1st, which is not an April Fool's joke. I understand the irony of the date. This is a serious thing. It just happens to be April 1st. They should have said April 2nd just to avoid any people. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of April Fool's jokes out there. Well, anyway, I got the email today because I did actually apply. I don't know if Andy even knew that. We talked about the event, but
yeah,
I did apply, and I was accepted into the pro race.
Oh,
and so
awesome.
In December of 2025, I'm going to go down to Arizona. I'm going to run in the pro race to see how fast I can run, according to Q, to see what happens if I have to run with people who are running 2:12 or something like that. I don't know exactly what the pace group setups are going to be. They haven't announced or released that information yet, but now we know.
Cool.
I'm in.
Well, I'm glad that you surprised me with something good.
You thought it was going to be bad?
No, I didn't know.
Oh, the last time I
had
surprised
no
you,
idea.
I had a broken foot.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, so there's the update. So
fine. Congrats.
Now, that doesn't change anything about my current plans. I was already anticipating a fall marathon, and this is just nice timing because it's later in the fall than it's in December instead of like an October marathon. So I have a little bit more time to get back to full training from this winter injury situation, and that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Very good. Cool.
Right on. Well, let's talk about the 10.
I think this race is so cool.
It is. So I don't remember when they started this. Sound Running started this event because the 10,000 meter distance is a very rare event at the highest level. It happens very few places in the world where athletes are running fast enough to be what would be the world championship qualifying time. Recall that time has gotten significantly faster than it used to be because of the new qualification setup. They're trying to have people qualify by world ranking, and your time qualifications are all super duper fast because they really only want people qualifying based on those times in rare instances where their ranking is not high enough, but they've run at least one fast time. And the reason why that would happen is because your ranking only is based on multiple performances, not one single performance. And so you can't get a legitimate world ranking unless you've done at least a few legitimate races. And so you have a situation where an athlete just can't travel to these premier events very often. And so instead, they find one that's fast, run it, hit the time, and then they don't have to worry about the ranking.
A handful.
Not very
Not
many,
even a handful.
because the times are super duper uber fast.
Yeah.
As we have stated before, the men's qualifying time for the 10,000 meter is 27 minutes flat. And you recall we said this last year, there's only been like 80 people ever to run that fast. And so this is not something, you might get a couple each year who have not run that fast doing so again. The women's time is 30:20. 30:20. As a matter of fact, the women's American record is only a handful of seconds. It's 30:03. And so the U.S. has only had 2 women run that fast ever. Maybe it's 1. I can't remember if someone else has or not. So you get the point. These times are very fast and very difficult. But you got to take a stab at it because if you can hit the time, you don't have to worry about your ranking, which is nice.
And so Sound Running put together this amazing event to draw fast runners to come and go after not a win, but a time.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, they're always going to be going for the win, but the idea is to run fast, not tactically.
Yep. So they're using the pacers. They're using the pace setup to run the World Championship qualifying time. The men's race paced out for 27 flat. The women's race was actually paced out for 30 minutes flat, not 30:20, because Elise Cranny and Wayne Kalati wanted to take a stab at the U.S. record, 30:03. So none other than Shelby Houlihan paced that race.
I did see her in photos. I
Yep.
was going to ask you about that.
She was there.
She's pacing. Okay.
Yeah. But they didn't do it. But we'll talk about that later. All right, let's talk about the men's race first.
Spoiler.
I know, sorry. Men's race first. Right from the start, strange things happening. We teased this in the introduction because it was worth teasing. If you see the photo of the start of the race when everyone's like just taking their first step and you look in the background of the photo, you see two people on the track way, way back, like all the way at the back of the straightaway. And you just figured they must just be like people warming up for a different event or something. No, they in fact were two men who were supposed to be at that start line.
What a bad feeling.
And we're not. What? Have you ever done that?
No.
Oh, I have. It's really awful.
I'm too much of a nervous Nelly.
Yeah, it's really unpleasant. I've shown up to races late before.
He has. I've been there, and it stresses me out.
It stresses me out too, but still happens. So this is what happened, they think. They don't actually know exactly how this happened, but the men's start of the 10,000 was a little bit wonky. It was delayed because I guess what ended up delaying it predominantly was someone showed up at the start line and didn't have his bib, and they were like, hey, you need your bib. And he's like, oh, no, I forgot it. And so they waited like 2 minutes for someone to go get the bib for this athlete. I don't know exactly the full details there. But what that then amounted to was they told all the athletes to do one more stride out and then come back, and then they would start. And so the athletes all were at the start initially. But after that one more stride out, the best guess is that Bekele and this other athlete went off the track, maybe to grab something, maybe to get a drink, maybe to go to the bathroom, who knows. And they just didn't quite make it back in time.
Oh, no.
So the race started, and they were on the track, but they were 100 meters behind. Enter Ethiopian Telahun Bekele, a 12:42 5,000 meter runner.
Wow.
Making his 10,000 meter track debut. And that's his first
He won't
experience.
forget. He won't forget his debut, and we won't either.
So now the question is, how do you think he did? Do you know the results? Have you looked far enough to know?
You showed me the video.
Okay. All right. Well, all right. So how do you think he did? You have to make your prediction while we start to tell you about the rest of the race. Okay. So here's what happens. In this event, you've got a couple of super fast collegians. You have Graham Blanks as a pro now, making his pro 10,000 meter first attempt. And some significant other list of notable names here.
Olympian Nico Young.
No, he's not in the race. I'm just referencing his record.
Oh.
Yep. He was not there.
Sorry, guys.
But Adrian Wildschut of South Africa, who holds all the national records there, he's there, among others. So you've got the notables and the names of names and such. But then with a lap to go, it was really a few unexpected and a few expected. And with one lap to go, I already said it in the teaser, in the opener, Telahun Bekele was there. He was one of five-ish, essentially five, but four really. And so he was right there, which is amazing because he had to run an extra 100 meters to get there from everybody else. But amongst good company, because right there with him were the likes of Habtum Samuel, who ran the second fastest NCAA time ever. When Nico Young broke the collegiate record last year at this event, Habtum Samuel was 1 or 2 seconds behind him and still running crazy fast. And then you've also got his New Mexico teammate, Ishmael Kipkarui, who is the 2023 World U20 XC champion. And if you know anything about cross-country, world cross-country stuff, to be a world cross-country champion, you have to be a legend. Mm-hmm. And that's true of the world under 20 as well category.
Yeah.
So here he is as a freshman at New Mexico, making his collegiate debut in the 10,000 as well. And also Graham Blanks of previously Harvard, now a professional runner, I believe, for New Balance. I can't actually remember who he runs for. But Graham Blanks had his outstanding senior season where he was breaking records, became an Olympian, all the good stuff. And then Adrian Wildschut's there too, of South Africa. So with a lap to go, you're thinking to yourself, could Bekele pull it off? The answer is running an extra 100 meters does actually take something out of you. And so if you do the math, that's about 14, 15 seconds longer than everyone else ran. So no, he didn't quite have it at the end. He didn't have the finishing kick. He ended up fourth though.
Yeah, his time debut was amazing.
He did run 26:50 whatever, 26:52, and got himself a world standard.
I think that is incredible.
But that will not put him on the world team. Because in Ethiopia, if you can't run 26:30, you're not making the world team. Because there's like 5 guys who can do that.
Will he have more opportunities to run?
He will have to
10,000s?
now run at the Ethiopian trials.
Okay.
And so they do that.
So he was trying to avoid that.
No, he'd have to anyway.
Yeah.
And so this allows him to put his stamp on the I can do it ticket because he has the world standard.
Mm-hmm.
But if he can't be top 3 at the Ethiopian trials, it doesn't matter.
Well, he probably won't be late.
You know, I don't think anyone wants to bring that up with him again. So Bekele had a great finish, not quite as great as the likes of Adrian Wildscutt, who finished 3rd in a 1 second miss from his national record. He ran 1 second.
His own national record.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's his own national record. He ran 1 second slower than his own national record. It was Ishmael Kipkurui who won the race, the freshman at New Mexico, over you could say the veteran, the New Mexico veteran. Only he's not that much older, but Habtum Samuel was second. So the 2 teammates, collegiate teammates, and both of them bested Nico Young's NCAA record from a year ago. So once again, Samuel is the 2nd fastest collegian behind Kipkurui, who holds the new collegiate record of 26:50, which is just really so incredible.
Yeah.
When Young and Samuel did that last year, all the talk was these 2 are incredible. This is like such a phenomenal performance.
Which it was.
And now you add another one to it, Kipkurui. Samuel's already run that fast. Yeah. It's only 2 seconds faster than he ran last year, but really impressive stuff. And not surprising, Kipkurui was an inevitable. As long as he could stay healthy and train well, he was going to show some signs of stardom because he's already an incredible runner. But here you go. It has begun. Collegiate record for the freshman from New Mexico. Good stuff. And Graham Blanks, by the way, finished 5th, but still ran the World Auto Qualifier of 26:57, which is a big personal best for him as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was.
It's always good to see people get some of those world qualifying times from the U.S. just because it really is a challenge for us sometimes.
Well, yeah. I mean, fundamentally
in most countries.
Yeah. Fundamentally, these standards are no longer a given.
Right.
Once upon a time, you would guarantee a significant number of athletes would hit the times, and then it was just a question of who was top 3 at the U.S. trials. But in this instance, that isn't always a guarantee anymore because the standards and the rankings. But the women's race was a little different. It was a little less dramatic, and certainly
they all made it to the start line.
Yes, certainly a little bit more
that we know
normal.
Of.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Who knows? But
we didn't knock on any bathroom doors.
As mentioned, the pace setters were set to go at U.S. record pace of 30 minutes flat. So they were coming through 5K in 15:01 was what they asked for Shelby Houlihan. She did her job just fine, but it was not long after that they started to drift. Couldn't quite hold it.
Well, we'll remind you that it was Alicia Munson's U.S. record.
30:03.
So
very
fast.
impressive. Very impressive. Yes, and so it was Munson's record that Elise Cranny and Wayne Kaladi were both going for, and so the 2 of them were right behind the Pacers, but they were not alone initially. For the first 2 miles, Pamela Koske, the Kenyan who runs for New Mexico, was also with them. She did not last very long, and that, there's no surprise because that is a very fast pace.
But she did end up, can I say? It's okay.
Sure.
She ended up still running a fabulous time. Number 2 collegian for NCAA all time, 31:02.
Yeah.
So it was still a fast time, but she suffered.
Well, if she would have gone with the pace
and
stayed, if she would have stayed on that pace, that would have been 45 seconds under Parker Valby's collegiate record. She was going for broke here. It was pretty impressive stuff. So yes, Koske ran the number 2 NCAA time ever, 31:02. And ended up back in like 9th place. She drifted back quite a bit, which is tough. But ahead of her, Cranny and Kaladi, though they did not hold for the record, and though they did not hold for the world auto standard of 30-20, they still ended up, the two of them, duking it out for the win and finished close to each other, 2 seconds apart. In fact, it was Cranny over Kaladi, 30-36 for a personal best for Cranny and the U.S. number 7 all-time performance to Kaladi's 30-38, which was just a few seconds off her own personal best.
So that means in the women's race, nobody met the standard, of course, since our winner and runner-up did not. So
yes,
live to fight another day, still running fast times. And, of course, not having as many opportunities to do the 10,000 makes it tricky to dial that in, finesse it, and get the best out of yourself.
Yeah, chances are none of these women will run another fast 10,000-meter event before the World Championships because there just really aren't hardly any other ones.
Well, USA's.
Yeah, but it's not fast. Not that fast.
If they run, it depends on how they run it. It depends because the women, more often than the men, will go for a fast time at a championship race
if
over
they need
tactics.
if they need the standard, for sure. Recall a couple of different instances of that in the last year or two.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about some of the fast running over the collegiate races over the weekend, in particular the Raleigh Relays, which was actually, I believe, Thursday, Friday type of meet last week. Raleigh Relays is always like the first look at the outdoor track season as far as some of the top tier runners. And so there's only really a handful of big NCAA meets throughout the year where you just get a whole bunch of these athletes coming to the same venue. And so Stanford is one of them. Raleigh's one of them. There's a couple others. And it's also early days. It's March. Most runners are not really in like prime racing shape yet. They're just starting to try to hit some qualifying times and just getting their toes wet. Not so much this year. This year is like, let's just show you how amazing we are in everything. So here's what we've got. We just got kind of a rundown of a few of these events, starting with the women's 1,500 meters and Virginia's Margot Appleton, who ran the number 4 NCAA time ever in 4:05.
When we say like number 4 all-time NCAA, you can say, hey, this person can be on the radar for USA's for snagging maybe a spot even at Worlds. 4:05 is fast. On the right day, if things don't go right for the few favorites,
it's
possible.
I don't know if Margot Appleton's American, but I'm assuming so.
Okay, yeah.
Because
we don't have
I
that
didn't
info.
see any evidence of other nationality. But NC State's Grace Hartman in the 10,000 meter ran 31:20, which, you know, we mentioned it's hard to find fast 10,000 meters. She basically had to just run by herself and ran the number 3 NCAA time. So you heard us mention Koske, who ran 31:02. Parker Valby holds the record. Grace Hartman's 31:20 is good for number 3. Not bad. But let's talk about the men's 1,500 because this was insane. So we watched the race.
He was pretty geeked about it.
Yeah, I had to show Andy. I was like, you got to watch this race. We watched it actually a few times because I was trying to see.
He kept going back and like, watch this part. Watch this part.
This one part. What happened? Something happened here that like made all the difference. Well, here's what it is. Let me give you the breakdown. So this was definitely going to be a fast race. The pace setters, and they had pacing lights for this one, I believe. Can't remember now. But the pace setters were asked to go fast. And you can only assume, because the pace setter was a Virginia graduate and Gary Martin was from running for Virginia, was right at the front of the race immediately, like that was the plan. You can only assume that Gary Martin asked for collegiate record pace, because why else would the pacer go that fast from the gun? And so collegiate record is no joke. It's been broken only a couple of times in the last recent memory, and it's a very fast time. You remember people like Yared Nuguse. He once broke the collegiate record, and only one other person has broken it since him, I believe. So that says something. Well, here's what you've got. Gary Martin goes with the pacer, and it's hot. They're moving fast. In fact, so much so that there's not even second place behind Martin is a fair ways back. And at some point midways through the race, you get this impression that that they're not going to be able to stay with him. Like they're kind of letting him go. And then this is what I said to Andy, you got to watch this. Something happens here. Because suddenly the guy who was behind Martin starts picking it up and like catches up to him. But it was like an instant. It was immediate. Like some switch flipped. Well, if you watch the race closely, here's what happened. It was Liam Murphy of Villanova who was in second. And somewhere right before the pacer drops out, about halfway into the race, he's drifting off. And his teammate, Marco Langen, comes up right beside him, like was a little ways back and then suddenly ran up and caught up to Murphy. But he didn't go ahead of Murphy. He got right up beside him. And then suddenly Murphy accelerated and Marco Langen came in behind him. And the two of them together caught up to Martin. And I keep telling Andy, I'm like, I don't think he says anything to him. You can't see any exchange. But clearly Langen's presence changed what Murphy was thinking.
I love to see things like that.
It was exciting.
You know, when teammates have that unspoken either camaraderie or maybe even a little bit of competitiveness.
Could be either or both ends. But after the race, it looked more like camaraderie than competitiveness. They were so stoked.
I do think that with teammates, when you train with them and you race with them so much, you are able to get into that race zone. And there is a momentum when a teammate is going to come up on your shoulder or you have that company that allows for you to dig that extra gear, get after it a little bit more.
True that. So, here's what happened. First, Martin is putting the pressure on. The pacer drops out and he keeps the gas pedal down and he actually accelerated. But Murphy and Langen are committed now and they just latch onto him. And it's just beautiful to see. The three of them are starting to pull away from everyone else. And with a lap to go, Martin is looking for another gear and he's finding it, but he's not breaking them off. So they're going around, and you know this guy's got a kick. He was the anchor leg to the national championship DMR. I think they broke the collegiate record in the DMR earlier in the season as well, Virginia. And so this dude's fast. We already know that. He's the number.
Talking about Martin.
Yeah, Gary Martin from Virginia. He's the number 2 fastest miler indoors of all time in the NCAA. He ran 3:48. It's crazy, this kid. So he starts moving, and you know he's got the gears, but Murphy and Langen do too. And so with a half a lap to go, 200 meters to go, Martin's looking for one more, and he starts to gap him a bit. And it's like, oh, he's got it. He's pulling away. But again, and you've got the teammates right next to each other. They're right next to each other. And about 50 meters later, they turn it up, and they reel him in. They get right up on him, and here's what happens. They hit the final straightaway. Liam Murphy goes wide and gets right over Martin's shoulder. Martin's drifting out a bit, which is what happens every time. What did Rod always say? Don't drift out. Hold your line. Hold the inside line. Martin drifts out a bit, and Langen shows up on his inside shoulder, and the two of them go by him. 1-2. Villanova guys passing you on either side. That's got to be like the most disheartening moment.
That's like the worst.
The worst.
When you're getting passed.
You're getting passed by two guys on both sides.
And it's like the final few meters.
50 meters in and 50 meters from the line, and they pass him. And here's what happens. Liam Murphy wins the race in a new NCAA record, 3:33.02. Marco Langen, second place in the second all-time NCAA performance as a teammate as well. Villanova 1-2 and 3:33.38. And Gary Martin in the third fastest NCAA time in 3:33.71. So all three of them best Elkanah Kipsang's, Eliud Kipsang's 3:33.74 record.
Respond to this. Reflect on this.
Yeah.
You're Villanova's coach. How do you feel?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you just won the lottery.
How do you feel? Like, that'd be so cool as a coach to see two of your athletes execute that well and work together. It is the dream come true scenario.
It is.
For the Villanova coach.
And they were just so stoked. You could see those guys at the end. They were hugging, high-fiving. They were just really excited. And Gary Martin, I mean, great performance. Great run. He did all the work, and they benefited from it. But, no, you have to do the work even if you're following someone. Martin's still just showing that he's just done some really impressive stuff. Mm-hmm. And by the way, Murphy and Langen under the world auto standard as well. Now, I'm not actually sure what the world auto standard is. 3:33 flat, 3:33.5, so maybe they weren't under it, but we'll have to double check that. Either way, that was not probably on their radar because, no collegiates ever run that fast before. Yet, they did.
They did.
So you have that. All right, a little bit of an interesting side conversation here because NCAA records are actually a point of confusion because what does it mean to be able to get an NCAA record? And there's a lot of debate about that. If you ran for the NCAA this season, can you get the record, at the Olympics later in the season, like Graham Blanks, for instance? If you ran for the NCAA this season, can you get the record outside of the season if you're still in college? How does this work?
If you're not in uniform,
right?
All those things.
So there's a kind of like multiple different layers here depending on which source you look at in terms of what the records are. But in this instance, Track and Field News tends to be the authority that most people lean on for the records, and they have a rule that you can only get an NCAA record if it's in season, if you're repping your school, so unattached, red-shirted, you can't get the records, and it can't be postseason races. So it has to be before or at the national championships, NCAA championships, and that's it. And so this counts, obviously, for that. They're in season, they're wearing the school colors, and so it would be. But there are some who have run faster than that previous record in other circumstances that are not officially recognized. But even then, Liam Murphy's time is still faster than anyone else has ever done. Mm-hmm. So he's got the record.
And that would
officially
also be the all-collegiate record, not just
Yes.
NCAA, but
Yeah.
usually the fastest times do come from the NCAA.
Yep.
It is good to note, though.
It is. It is. Yeah, so there you have it. What an exciting event. All right. Let's talk about high school now, or just teenagers in general, because it's not just high schoolers. But we've got some young people running fast also. First, a new addition to the high school sub-4 milers club.
Wow.
This means 27 now boys in the United States have run under 4 minutes for a full mile, in high school. That includes indoors or outdoors. The 27th edition is Tommy Latham, the first ever sub-4 miler from the state of Georgia. How about that?
Cool.
Yep. And
Way to
he
go.
also,
I was getting excited for him.
He also did it totally by himself in just like a regular podunk home meet. So this is what's crazy, right? Because actually, who was the last one to run sub-4 in high school at a podunk home meet?
Alan Webb.
Gary Martin.
Gary.
We were just talking about him. Gary Martin did this. It was like his conference meet in high school. So the sub-4 milers usually happen in a race that is like a pro race or an elite race where a whole bunch of people are running sub-4 and the high schoolers are just hanging on for dear life. But not so for Tommy Latham. He ran by himself the whole entire time. There's no pacer because there's no high school pacer that can do this. And even if they could, they wouldn't be able to do it very well because high schoolers can't pace worth beans. I'm joking, kind of. But
Don't be offended, high schoolers.
he ran it by himself. He ran 3:59 at his home track, which is just how cool, right?
How good.
Cool. You are an instant.
You know the people are like screaming their heads off for you.
What's the word? What's the word all the kids have for like someone who's super smooth and like
Don't ask
good with
me
the
for
ladies?
cool things.
Riz, is that the right word?
I have no idea.
I bet you this Tommy Latham is the like star of the school, at least for a moment. Unless they're one of those schools that only cares about football.
At least with the track
They are
team.
in Georgia. And so in Georgia, if you don't play football, then you're not an athlete. So that's kind of how it goes.
We can't say we're surprised at how fast he is, though, because he's also the Nike indoor champ in the 2 mile, running 8:44. So this kid is fast. Obviously, you have to be fast to run sub-4 in the mile by yourself. But it is good to know that he has posted other corroborating times that you could say, hey, yeah, this kid's good, and he's going to be good.
True that.
Probably for a long time.
Yeah, it was probably only a matter of time before he ran sub-4, given his other performances this year. But there you go. Tommy Latham, welcome to the club. I mean, I'm not part of it. No, it's not. I'm not welcoming you from the inside, just from the outside.
We're congratulating.
Good job. Okay, how about this? 2 high schoolers from Oregon, teammates. You've heard us talk about them before, Josiah Tostenson and Tavon Kitchen. Both of them sub-4 milers themselves, did so indoors in the same race, which is just so cool.
How fun.
Teammates and all. They ran the 1,500 meters, and ran number 8 and number 9 all time for the United States high school list. And this time it was Tostenson over Kitchen in a 340 flat 1,500 meter. Kitchen 341. As far as U.S. high school goes, that's top 10 performances for both.
Which the top 10 of anything these days is getting more and more impressive because times are dropping.
Yeah.
And it's so fast, and it blows our mind.
It is at that. Now, there are nowhere near the top U.S. high school boy performance, which is held by Hobbs Kessler in 334. And so
I can't wait to see him back on the track.
do you remember when Hobbs
Let's go,
Kessler
Hobbs.
ran that? When Hobbs Kessler
Yes.
ran the high school 1,500 meter record, it was faster than Yard Nagus's collegiate 1,500 meter record. That's just, what a stat.
Yeah.
No wonder Hobbs Kessler went pro out of high school and just skipped that whole college fiasco. Who needs it?
Well, yeah. And it's fun to follow him.
Yes, it
He's
is.
being from Michigan and all.
He's just having a year or two. I
Yeah.
really hope it keeps going.
I know. That's why I said I can't wait
Yeah.
for him to step
I
back
know.
on the track and start racing again.
I know. All right, well, let's talk about one last super fast teenager, Cam Myers, out of Australia. Cam Myers, by the way, we're mentioning that 1,500 meter list. He holds the world under 20 or 18. I can't remember. He holds the world under something 1,500 meter record in 3:33. Hobbs Kessler's like number 3 on that list, by the way. Anyway, so Cam Myers, incredible teenage phenom. At some point, we have to stop talking about it as if it's like
Surprising?
surprising or impressive. It's just Cam Myers
is
doing what he normally does.
Well, he's not impressed with himself, so.
No, he's not. That's for
Which
sure.
makes it fun to be impressed for him because we're like, hey, this is amazing. Get excited a little bit.
Well, what was exciting in this particular instance is not fast running, but who he beat at the Maury Plant 1,500 meters in Australia. Cam Myers won the race in a blazing 3:34.98, not a personal best, but very fast. And this field featured multiple Olympians and professional runners like Adam Spencer, an Olympian, Ali Hoare, pro runner for you get it, Sam Tanner, we've talked about him before, the New Zealander, the Kiwi, who's an Olympian. Sam Ruth was in the race. He ran 3:40, which is a personal best, but nowhere near Cam Myers, who won in 3:34.98.
Okay.
So just continues to show, at this point in time, you have to start asking things like, is he actually a contender for like making
medals?
Yeah, well, maybe not medals, but making it to the World Championships.
I think so.
He has run fast enough to hit the auto qualifying standard. He hasn't this season, but
I think the real question marks for someone like Cam Myers is having to do the whole travel bit, because when you're from Australia, you got a long way to go to get to the competitive races. So it will be interesting to see how he handles that, because it does have an effect on the body and even mentally. So experience will help him. Does he have enough yet? How will he react? All the variables.
yeah, he came. You recall indoors, he came to the
Yeah.
U.S. to run Millrose, the Wanamaker Mile. Is it called the Wanamaker Mile at Millrose? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. He came to the U.S. to run that event and did another meet before, just to prep and get rid of the jet lag and all of that. And the meet before, we were like, 350 or something. And that's so fast. And he was like, meh. He was unfazed. Well, here's why. Because then at Millrose, he ran 347. And so naturally, he was not impressed because he actually just ran the Australian record. So Cam Myers, it has faster times than any of the current professional runners in Australia in the mile. He is beating them, like in this race. He's probably going to be selected for their team. His world ranking's got to be high enough. I have to imagine it's high enough. And so I have no doubt we're going to see him at the World Championships as a teenager. And it just harkens back to Jakob Ingebrigtsen. It harkens back to Kipchoge. He won his first world medal as a teenager at the World Championships in the 5,000. So these are really fun times. Fun times we're living in. I like it. All right.
On to our A to Z runner updates before we do our trivia game.
Yes, we do have a trivia game
We
for
do.
you. Except for I don't have the trivia thing with me right now. So
We could do it on mine.
we have a trivia thing for you. If you recall, that's a blast of a segment that we've just added. So stick around for that. First, just a quick couple good lucks to A to Z runners. We didn't have anyone run this past weekend in racing events, but we have a number running this upcoming. So depending on when you're listening to this, good luck to those running the Mount Charleston Marathon, the Bentonville Half, and the Cherry Blossom 10 miler, which is apparently that event's really difficult to get into. They fill up really fast. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
And others too. So when you're out there running, you see the black shirt with the blue shoe, or you see the blue shirt with the black fade. We have a couple of different uniforms out there. You can say, hey, that's an AtoZ runner.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we have our artificial intelligence guest with us. Sorry for that slight hiccup to try to get the AI available. But recall the rules of the game before I start talking to it. That we are going to ask the AI to give us trivia questions with multiple choice, and then we are going to do our best to come up with an answer, and Andy and I will both make our best guess, and then we'll find out which one's right, and then we're going to keep score. Do you remember the score?
I don't think I got any.
Nope,
Right?
and I only got one.
So, can I choose the topic?
Well, we're going to continue with the Boston Marathon.
Oh.
We're prefacing the Boston Marathon with a
All
couple
right,
of weeks
sure.
of Boston Marathon trivia. And then, yes, after that, we'll choose a new topic.
Okay.
Okay.
Here we go.
Are you ready, audience?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Okay, here it is. Hey, welcome back. We are back on live with our audience, so we're glad to have you on the show again with us. Go ahead and say hi to the audience.
Hello again, everyone. It's great to be back with you all.
All right, so recall the rules of the game. We're going to ask you to give us some trivia questions, and with the trivia question, give us a multiple choice of 4 options, and we will try to guess the correct one, and then we'll ask you to reveal the correct answer to us. So this topic, again, is the Boston Marathon, and we would like Boston Marathon trivia questions. Go ahead and start with the first one.
All right, let's dive into another Boston Marathon question. Who was the first American woman to win the Boston Marathon after 1985? 1. Lisa Rainsberger. 2. Joan Benoit Samuelson. 3. Desiree Linden. 4. Shalane Flanagan. What's your guess?
Okay. Are you ready, Andy?
My timeline of things is so foggy.
It's just a 1, 2, 3, or 4.
I know.
1, 2, 3. Guess. I'm guessing. Okay.
We both guessed
We
too.
both guessed Joan Benoit Samuelson. What was the right answer?
Great guesses, but the correct answer is 1. Lisa Rainsberger. She won in 1985. Nice try.
I don't even know. Give us some information about her. I don't even know who that is.
Sure. Lisa Rainsberger, formerly Lisa Weidenbach, won the Boston Marathon in 1985. She was the last American woman to win until 2018. She's known for her impressive marathon career and also competed in triathlons and Ironman events.
Ask when Joan.
Wow. When did she win?
Yeah.
Did she win Boston? Did Joan Benoit Samuelson ever win Boston?
Yes, Joan Benoit Samuelson won the Boston Marathon twice. She first won in 1979 and then again in 1983, setting a course record. She's a legendary figure in women's distance running.
See, we did recall from previous trivia that that she had won because it was on a different question.
That's what I was saying. My timeline was
Timeline's a little off.
foggy.
Okay, all right, chat. We need another trivia question. Go ahead with a second one.
All right, here's another one for you. Which runner holds the record for the most Boston Marathon wins in the men's open division? 1. Clarence DeMar. 2. Bill Rogers. 3. Robert Kipkoech-Cheriot. 4. Jeffrey Mutai. What's your guess?
Okay. Do you have a guess?
Can it be repeated?
What do you mean? Yeah, go ahead and repeat those options for us again.
Sure. Here are the options again. 1. Clarence DeMar. 2. Bill Rogers. 3. Robert Kipkoech-Cheriot. 4. Jeffrey Mutai. What's your pick?
Okay. Are you ready? Do you want to make a guess?
I will make a guess.
You're going to have to make a guess.
I have to make a guess.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, guess! Did you guess Bill Rogers? No, you did not. I don't even know who 3 was. What was 3? What was number 3?
Number 3 was Robert Kipkoech-Cheriot.
Oh.
And the correct answer is
Go ahead.
Clarence DeMar holds the record with 7 wins. He's a true legend
7.
of the Boston Marathon.
What years did Clarence DeMar win?
Clarence DeMar won the Boston Marathon in 1911 and then 6 more times between 1922 and 1930.
Well,
His last win was in...
That's why we didn't know. Okay. All right. Thank you. Let's go ahead with one more. Give us one more Boston Marathon trivia question.
All right, here's one more for you. Which year did the Boston Marathon officially allow women to compete? 1. 1966, 2. 1970, 3. 1972, 4. 1975. What's your guess?
I got to guess. Do you have a guess yet?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I
Okay.
think I'm wrong.
3, 2, 1, guess! Oh, you guessed 1972. I guessed 1975. Okay, which was the correct answer?
The correct answer is 3. 1972. Women were officially allowed to compete starting that year. Great job.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Go ahead and say goodbye to the audience.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. It's been a blast. Keep running strong.
All right, so that brings us to a tie game. Andy has 1 point overall. Zach has 1 point overall, although I got completely skunked today. No correct answers.
Isn't that wild? I'm curious for you listeners if we have any factoid people who have been nailing all these questions or most of them.
Yeah, now here's the thing. You're going to have to play along because now you have to find out if you can beat Andy and Zach at trivia. And so
we're not off to a great start.
Now, you have to understand 2 things. First, we are deliberately not trying to prep for this.
Yeah.
We're not trying to research anything to like shore up our knowledge before these trivia questions. Mm-hmm. And so if you do, shame on you.
No, it's great to research stuff, especially when it comes to running.
But also, you got to keep some score here and find out. So right now, if you got more than one of those correct, you won the round. But we won't know that unless you post it in the comments. So wherever you're listening, wherever you're tuning in, the easiest way to comment, by the way, is on YouTube, where we post most of our content. But Spotify has a pretty simple integrated commenting system too. So share the comment. How did you do? And let us know your score. And then if you're really playing along, if you're a diehard, keep your score episode to episode, because that's what we're doing. And we can find out how you can play against Andy and Zach in the AI trivia segment, which we will do at the end of every running news episode, as long as we have an AI available to play the trivia with us.
Mm-hmm. Well, just a reminder that we do have other content helping runners thrive, so make sure you check out our main topic as well. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you again soon.